Mr. Mohammed, you have the floor.
Thank you, Sami. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bonjour tout le monde. Good morning, everyone. Dear Madam Sirin Tlili, DG of Etrust and actual chairman or chairwoman of AICTO, dear Mr. Olivier Delos from Sirit, esteemed members of AICTO, our partners from Asia PKI and from HC, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed speakers and participants. Today we are delighted to have you with us to participate and share in our webinar towards the Common Arab-African Framework for Digital Trust Services. This webinar is organized within the scope of AICTO's regional project Arab-African E-Certification Authorities Network, AICTO, and in partnership with CIRIT and with the support of Etrust, our partner, who was with us since our first steps of creating this AICTO. We all know today that the world is going through a period of enormous uncertainty and facing wide-ranging challenges caused by the outbreak of COVID-19. Besides healthcare, one of the major challenges faced the governments worldwide is how to deal with the lockdown without a heavy load on economic and social levels. Within this uncertainty, information and communication technologies have come into view again as the most vital ways for ensuring our health and safety, and for preserving our economies and societies as much as possible during this period, where countries and companies have switched for the online alternative to keep many sectors functioning as education, work, commerce, etc. We perceived many concerns from the other side about cybersecurity and digital safety. So the big challenge is how to achieve a successful and safe digital transformation. From our perspective, the key point is to establish a strong trust framework going along with the digital transformation and coping with the new normal of the next normal. Within this scope, we are here today to discuss around the digital trust services, to come up with solutions to boost the awareness and to address the emerging challenges. The AICTO, the Arab African E-Certification Authorities Network, is working toward a better inter-regional collaboration on e-trust for better trustworthy digital economies based on laws, harmonization, and digital trust services interoperability. Today, as never before, we need to accelerate our actions towards the common frameworks and the mutual recognition. We strongly believe that digital trust requires strong cooperation relationships at the regional and international levels in order to create collaborative approach to promote an open, free, and secure cyberspace for everyone, everywhere. We would like to thank our partner CIRIT for raising the subject of this webinar going beyond the Common Arab-African Framework for Digital Trust Services to focus on the benchmark with the mutual recognition and does and to prospect the promotion of HC European norm 319/403 standard within the process of the regional and national accreditation of conformity assessment bodies for the assessment certification of the conformity to of TS and TSP, and we welcome him again as member in AICTO. Mr. Olivier, you are welcome in AICTO. I thank Etrust, the chairman of AICTO for 2019-2020 for the continuous support, and also our esteemed speakers from the European Commission and Asia PKI Consortium. We are grateful to you for sharing some of your precious time and knowledge. Many thanks goes also to all respected participants, representatives of the digital certification authorities from the Arab and African countries. Your support is very important for us. Together we can make our cyberspace more trustworthy. Wishing you a very successful webinar and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Your Excellency, Mr. Mohammed Amour, SG of AICTO. Now I give the floor to Ms. Serene Netlili, CEO of Etrust and chairwoman of ICANNET network. So, Ms. Serene, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Sami. Thank you for your time. First of all, I would like to welcome you all for being here. Thank you, Mr. Mohammed bin Amour, for your invitation. And welcome to Mr. Olivier and Mr. Kumar. I'm happy to be with you today. I think that Mr. Mohammed bin Amour have said everything about the need for digital transformation in order to overcome the sanitary crisis that we are going through, worldwide going through the sanitary crisis. And now it shows that this pandemic actually has changed our way of life, our way of working, of doing business, etc. So in that new context that we are living in, we need to build up a framework for trust services and digital services to make them easily used by citizens and by administrations and countries. As a chairman, the CEO of the National Digital Certification Agency, I would like to share with you the experience we had during this pandemic crisis. During this time, we have witnessed a very huge demand on digital certificates to establish the digital identity of citizens in order to enable them to go through online services. There's a lot of government services that have been shifted from the paper-based service to online service. And this shift has been done in a very short time because we had to do it very quickly to go very fast. And when doing things quickly, we are taking risk also in this shift. And we have to pay attention to security and trust while moving from the usual paper-based way of doing things to the digital. So now it brings a lot of challenges in order to make sure that this shift has been done in a secure way. As an agency also here in Tunisia, we are working hard on getting compliance to standards related to digital certification. We are working now, we are compliant to the AICTO standard. We are as well compliant to the Etrust standard, which will enable us to provide services that are secure enough for our clients. But this brings also a lot of challenges, is to have the harmonization between these standards and our national regulation. So I think there's a lot of work to do at this level, how to bring a national regulation to these standards or the standards to national regulation. This is the big challenge. And another thing also, we have two kinds of standards that we are trying to be compliant with. We have the AICTO standards, we have the Etrust standards, and sometimes between these standards, they're not really, there's not like a deep consistency between them. So how can we manage to be compliant to these two standards at the same time? And we also, as an agency, is not only being compliant to standards and be compliant to national regulation or regional regulation. There's another challenge also that we have to think about, is how to be accepted as a trusted entity in software editors. Because we need to have, now that we have issuing digital certificates, that we are doing digital identity, digital signatures, we need to go through the recognition of the digital identity and digital signatures. And this is not only based on national regulation or regional regulation, it is also based on the discretion of software editors. So how can we bring all these together so that a national and nation certification agency would not get like overwhelmed with a lot of requirements to fulfill, either as national regulation standards and software editors. So these are the points that I'm raising, because I think that it is important to go through these points during our work and during our debate. And I will not be long, so just to make sure that we will cover a lot of topics, urgent topics that we need to deal with. And I hope that this debate will bring up a new way of thinking, a new way of working together in order to bring solution to these challenges. So thank you for your time, and I'm happy to hear from you how we can work together on these fields.
So thank you, Mrs. Chairperson of the network, Mrs. Serene, for this very executive presentation, and it is maybe our roadmap for the next steps. Our list now of panelists is the following. So we'll start with Ms. Nada Al-Abidi from AICTO for the presentation of the network. Then Mr. Konstantinos from the European Commission. He's also the CEO of Connect. Will make a presentation on EIDS international aspects. And after will be Mr. Olivier Delos from SILD. And then Mr. Vijay Kumar from ASIPK Consortium. And after that, we'll have the session where we will present you the new survey that we will post it on our website. So the aim is to update our last studies and to get the updated figure of the status regarding Etrust in the both region, Arab and Africa. So now I give the floor to Ms. Nada Al-Abidi. Nada, you have the floor.
Thank you, Sami. I just share my presentation. Okay. Can you see the presentation? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm not sure. I can't see the presentation on the screen. So okay. Is it okay?
Go ahead.
Can you see the okay. Thank you. So I will briefly present the ICANNET to make time for our speakers. So ICANNET is the Arab African E-Certification Authorities Network. The vision, it's an interregional multi-stakeholder network for digital trust in the Arab and African region. It's also open to all stakeholders at the international level. The vision behind the creation of this network is to join all efforts at the regional level to work towards a better trustworthy digital economy based on laws, harmonization, and digital trust services and interoperability. We have three objectives. We have drawn three objectives for this network. First objective is to work towards the laws convergence, to harmonize regulatory framework related to digital trust based, of course, on international experiences. The second objective is interoperability and mutual recognition. It's to work on the interoperability and the mutual recognition between the countries of the two regions from one side and between them with the rest of the world from another side. The third objective is to work on standardization development. It's about harmonizing positions of these countries in the field of standardization and to encourage them to be part and to be involved in the process of the standardization creation, namely in the digital trust. For the organization, so the main core of this network is the working groups who are invited to setting up many dedicated activities in order to achieve the set goals. We have 3 working groups. The first working group is strategic planning. We have the working group on technical aspects and standardization, and we have a working group on legal framework. So each working group is working to achieve a main goal through many actions and activities. The first working group on strategic planning is working to prepare or to come up with an African strategy for digital trust and PKI implementation in collaboration, of course, with the 2 other working groups. The second working group on technical aspects and standardization, the main mission is to bridge the gap in this field and to prepare for the mutual recognition through many actions and activities. The third working group is legal framework harmonization. The mission of this working group is to prepare a common regulatory framework. So it's, of course, taking into account the real needs and specific characteristics of the region, the countries of these 2 regions. Here we have the members in ICANNET. So far we have 9 countries. We have Oman, Sudan, Iraq, Tunisia, Palestine, Djibouti, Niger, Mauritania, Burkina Faso. Although many countries were expected to officially join the ICANNET, but we know that this year was so difficult for many countries. So we was expecting to have 15 countries at least, or 15 members at least with us. But I think that this webinar is a good opportunity to resume contact with these countries and to enable us to accelerate maybe the next steps. For activities, we have a set of activities like awareness activities, we have capacity building, we have studies and report, technical assistance, and of course, regional and international cooperation. For the achievements, we have organized 2 editions of the Interregional Standardization Forum for PKI and Etrust. The first edition was held in 2017 in Oman, and it was in collaboration and with the Digital Certification Center in Oman. The second edition was organized in Tunis last year. It was in collaboration with Etrust. Besides, we have done some other activities and achievements. We have launched a white book on PKI deployment roadmap. Also, we launched a study on state-of-the-art and prospect of Etrust services in the 2 regions. Many training sessions have been done. Also, a technical assistance mission. The last activity was the launching of the technological magazine of AICTO called Smart. The first edition was dedicated to digital trust, regional and international experiences. Many partners give us gave inputs in this magazine, and it was we received a very positive feedback on it. So the way forward, we will continue to work on these activities, and we'll focus maybe on the capacity building activities, and also to produce reports and studies. We'll update the survey and the white book. Later, Olivier will present a new edition of this study, and also we'll start to draft the Arab African strategy and maybe to work on the regulatory framework of reference. We'll try to keep working groups meeting to hold one meeting each month. It depends on the availability of the members of the group. So the third edition of the Interregional Standardization Forum was planned to be held in this year in Saudi Arabia in partnership with the Ministry of Communication and Information Technologies and the National Center for Digital Certification in Saudi Arabia. But unfortunately, it was postponed due to the disruption we caused by the COVID-19. We hope that we have our friends today from the CDC maybe will move forward to communicate and to discuss about the next edition maybe to be held the next year. For international cooperation, we start communication with ETSI and with the Asia PKI consortium. So we'll sign an MOU with ETSI and also with the Asia PKI consortium. We started collaboration, and we have our friend Vijay today with us. Maybe we look forward to move towards achieve our common goals. Thank you. I will stop here. Thank you, Sami.
Thank you, Nada, for this presentation. Our next speaker is still missing. We're waiting him. So maybe Olivier, I will give you the floor. Maybe you can switch your presentation before him. And as soon as he will connect, you will give him the floor.
I'm just on the phone with him he's trying to connect. So
okay.
Maybe Vijay can present.
Vijay, you are able to make the presentation now, your presentation?
Sorry, I was on mute. Was that the question for me?
Is it possible that you make that we switch your presentation as we are waiting for the next speaker? So maybe we'll switch your presentation before.
Sure, definitely, I can do that. Give me a moment.
Okay, please do. You have the floor.
Yeah. I'll just share my screen. Hope you're able to see my screen.
Very good. Yes, go ahead, please.
Perfect. So good morning, all of you, and thanks to AICTO team, especially NADA, for having me on this webinar. So it's our pleasure to represent for this particular webinar, and I'm representing Asia PK Consortium. So in my presentation, I will quickly go through with a brief introduction of Asia PK Consortium, and then I will cover on how trust services are handled in Asian landscape. So we'll run through this presentation. So basically, I have summarized my presentation to this sequence. So I will speak a little about our consortium. I represent the secretariat and the chair of the consortium. Currently it is India, so I represent from there, but I am also chair of technology and standards working group of the consortium. Yeah, so that's I will go through the introduction of the consortium, and then I will take through the country-wise how the trust services are handled across Asia. So about our consortium, we were established in June 2001. It's been almost 2 decades now that we are operational. We have several countries who are our members. Some of the past members have also exited due to varied reasons over there. But yes, currently we have members from 10 plus countries of Asia, and we have a lot of countries in discussion to be on board for this. So from the structure, India is the chairperson now of the consortium, and we have 3 vice chairs: Hong Kong, Thailand, and Iran, primarily represented by government agencies. So in Thailand, it is represented by Electronic Transaction Development Agency. Hong Kong is represented by Hong Kong PKI Forum, which is the PKI body in Hong Kong. Then Iran is represented by the e-commerce division of the government. And from India, I also represent from India PKI Forum. So India PKI Forum is the member of Asia PKI Consortium. And I personally, at a capacity of CTO at eMudra, so we are the members of India PKI Forum. And that's why we chair this Asia PKI Consortium. So the primary objective is trust services across Asian countries. So that's the objective by which this consortium has been set up. The major objectives has been adoption, awareness, interoperability, and mutual recognition in trust services. So this is the objectives on which we keep working. And in this broader agenda, we are not limited to Asia alone. We'll be happy to work with the global organizations like AICTO, and also we have been working with ETSI, Electronic Signatures Infrastructure Group, for looking at globalizing the trust services and make it get interoperable. So we work with various bodies across the world, and we'll be happy to liaise with AICTO as well. So from the consortium structure angle, so there are members, there are 10 plus countries, as I mentioned. These are all Asian countries. Additional 10 countries are under progress towards membership. So there are active discussion from private and government agencies of those countries. We have different types of members. There are principal members, 1 per country or economy. Then there are enterprise members predominantly made for the enterprises who are working in and around PKI, like maybe a certifying authority, or maybe a solution provider, or maybe a hardware provider. So anyone allied with PKI is qualified to become an enterprise member. We do have 2 special categories: NPO members and individual members. These are for special organizations at a different annual membership fee, which are specifically approved by the consortium. We do several member meetings. So there is 1 general assembly, there is 1 steering committee, then 1 special steering committee. So at least twice a year we meet. Earlier it was physical, and recently we have switched to complete virtual meetings. So we keep interacting, all the countries participate actively. And also we conduct an annual symposium, and thankfully Ms. Nada was part of our last symposium, which was held in last December, and also Olivier was part of that. So thanks to them, they are also here with me in this panel. So we conduct annual symposium and try to bring more awareness on PKI, not only what is happening in Asian countries, but also what is happening around the world. So that's the objective. There are some country names in this slide, which you can refer to, who are part of our consortium. Geographically, this is what we are distributed as. So if you can see, a lot of interactions, a lot of communications happening across Asia. So a lot of things are happening. Only thing from Central Asia and Northern Asia, which is the Eurasian region, we have less representations or not much active discussions. But yes, if you see, even the Middle East, we do have a lot of conversation who are also now part of Asia PK Consortium. So we have membership from Iran, we have active discussions with Saudi Arabia, UAE, so different countries over there. We do have working groups. We have 3 primary objectives to arrive from these working groups. So we have One working group specifically focused on business applications, which will help resolving cross-domain, cross-region issues in business applications. And it promotes exchange and collaboration between our members, then also to explore and enrich the information applications and IT-enabled services. So primarily focused on the business application area in PKI. Then we do have legal and policy working group, which is chaired by Hong Kong. The earlier one is chaired by Taipei, and I'm the co-chair of it. Legal and policy working group works on more policy side of it to influence interoperabilities or working with government agencies, and also produce certain papers for the consortium members. Then there is technology and standards working group, which I personally chair this particular working group. We do a lot of activities continuously. We work on standardizing and making technological advancements in PKI to work on public key cryptography and the emerging technologies. So we don't restrict ourselves to PKI. When we work, it is more on public key cryptography as well. Like say, even there are cases of blockchain, there are cases of FIDO kind of implementation what we work on, and public key infrastructure as well as the technology area. Then we help on bringing technological platforms together for the members. So we work with technological organizations, so how we can work with them and make them accessible to the members. So one of the point earlier speaker also mentioned about the applications, the need of applications to play a crucial role in establishing the trust. So we do work on that, and also to produce certain white papers and case studies around the technology and standards. So we are actively working on this. So there are independent working groups which works and produces certain information for the members. Now, specifically certain countries I would like to highlight. There are several countries what I have covered in the presentation, but I will touch upon a few countries without taking too much of time. So first is, let me give a broad overview. In Asia, it is predominantly regulation-driven trust services. So everywhere there is a local regulation which is established way back in 2000 or 2001, that period. So this is purely based on the UN Unicitral Model Law on electronic signatures. So there are different versions of this model law. So there is 96, then 99, and 2001. So these were available. This introduces trust service providers, or what is called in the region as certifying authorities for electronic signatures. Most of the countries appoint national regulator who either operate a root CA and appoint issuing CAs under their root, or there are also a few countries who have the national regulator to accredit or empanel the issuing CAs. So in some of the countries, you can operate a private certifying authority, but get empaneled by the national regulator. So these are also available. So most of the countries adopt web trust principles for assessment, or because it is governed by the government laws, they have their own customized assessment criteria. But there has been active work what consortium has been pushing to bring this assessment criteria, even though when customized, to be in sync with other standards like ETSI or web trust principles for certifying authority. So let me go on some of the countries and go through these countries. So first is on India. There is national root certificate by Government of India. There is a root CA. There is an law which was enacted in 2000, which provides the legal validity in the country. There is user base of 50 million plus users in the country who use day in and day out electronic signatures. But if you see in number of transactions what are happening, it's more than 100 million transactions what we do. So and also we do have, so there are two kinds of signatures in India. The one is called online electronic signatures, e-sign. The second one is we have crypto token based, which is a USB form factor. We have crypto token based user base, electronic signature user base, which counts to 5 million plus users. So this is mandatory for several classes of tax filing, company law filings, e-procurement, tendering systems, etc. So predominantly, if you see, this is driven by government initiatives. Many of the government initiatives where G2C or G2B works happen. So these are requiring to use electronic signature. So there is a trust established between an online trust established between the citizen and the government. Then there are trust service providers. So there are 5 major trust service providers who are public. So I represent one of them called eMudra. Then there are a couple of them which are closely held for military, government, banking. So quite a few of them now. We have custom audit criteria for trust service providers with government auditor empanelment and training program. So there is a custom audit criteria, but yes, we have different global agencies working to keep this in sync with ETSI and Web Trust for Certification Authority principles. So this is about India. So let me quickly run through some other countries as well. So China, there is an electronic signature law of the People's Republic of China, which was enacted in 2004. There is this terminology, electronic verification service provider, is used predominantly for certifying authorities. There are regional trust services which are established based on law. Banks and several organizations run their own PKS system which are in accordance to this law. There are implementations like EID project, e-governance applications, so several implementations. And it is also mandated to use PKI-based authentication in banking above certain threshold. So, but once again, there is no interoperability. This has been one of the continuous questions, because if you are having multiple bank accounts with different banks, then you have multiple PKI keys with you. So this is about China. Hong Kong, yes, Hong Kong has its own ordinance for electronic transaction in 2000. There is a root certificate operated by Hong Kong Post. There are various implementations, quite a lot of implementations of PKI in Hong Kong. There is optional usage which is enabled in banking sector as well. There is no third-party trust service provider in Hong Kong. Everything is operated by Hong Kong Post, which is backed by a private sector organization called Citizen. There are separate issuing CAs under this particular organization structure for banking, individuals, and corporates. So this is about China and Hong Kong. Similar implementations are there in Korea. Korea has its own law. There are 2 certification schemes, and KISA is the Korean Information Security Agency, is the certifying authority which manages their trust services. So they have issued certificates for internet banking, online stock trading, online shopping, as well as e-government services. So there is quite a lot of implementation in Korea as well. Taiwan, Chinese Taipei has its own law. Once again, there are 2 certification authority schemes here as well. There is a government PKI, and there is one operated by TWCA for public financial services. TWCA is also a Web Trust assessed CA, and they have issued more than 5 million certificates. This is the stats till 2018. A few more countries what I wanted to quickly throw light on. Thailand, they have their own Electronic Transactions Act, which is enacted. There is national route set up by ETDA, Electronic Transaction Development Agency. They are also vice chair of our consortium. They have licensed 2 issuing CAs. If I'm not wrong, there is also a third one active recently. So there are 3 issuing CAs as of now. Thai Digital ID has set up various the services for e-tax invoice and e-insurance policy. So e-invoicing is mandatory in Thailand for certain threshold and above. So this particular certifying authority enables required electronic signatures for that. And EXIM, the export import, is also one of the use case what they work on. Macau, once again, a tiny country, so they tiny economy actually, so they have their own law. Macau Post and Telecommunication is the regulator. They manage this trust services there. There is one trust service provider which is operated by self-operated by the regulator called Etrust. It provides legal definition for advanced and qualified digital signatures. One of the big thing what they have done, like India, is they have also launched their remote signing, which is more popular in Macau nowadays. So there is remote signing already established in Macau. So some of the countries have already enabled remote signing, like India, Macau, etc. But many countries are using only physical custodial crypto tokens or smart card for trust services. Malaysia has its act, but here the Malaysia main difference is they don't have a root certifying authority. Malaysian trust service providers are accredited based on the web trust seal. So any organization can abide by the law and have the independent web trust assessment, and based on that assessment, MCMC, the regulator, has a accreditation process. Currently, there are 4 TSPs: POS, DigiCert, MSC, TrustGate, Telecom, Applied Business, and RAFCOM. Tax filing is one of the biggest use case what they have, but also there are several other use cases like e-court or marriage certificates or several other processes in Malaysia. Saudi Arabia is recently happening. This is a country from Middle East. There has been a law since 2007. NCDC, the National Center for Digital Certification, is the regulator. There is one trust service provider operated by government itself, which is for government PKI. But last year, they have also licensed another private telecom entity, or rather 2 now. So there are 2 telecom entities who are operating as a private trust service provider in the country and catering to general public. So here also the requirement is they have to get a web trust seal from the auditors and then apply with the national regulator and get a license to operate under the law. So yeah, so that is more about few countries what I wanted to throw light on. But one more important thing is most of the countries what I mentioned till now, they have provision for accrediting foreign certifying authorities or foreign trust service provider. Like say for example UAE. UAE has accredited I think 4 foreign certifying authorities as on date. So in this way there are many countries, they have a procedure to license or recognize foreign trust service provider so that there is interoperability in place. So foreign certifying authorities or global certifying authorities can also participate in these geographies. Well, summarizing in last 2 slides, if you see PKI is in continuous demand in the region. So all the trust services are moving to PKI, even the recent IoT use cases, smart city implementations are having PKI in place. So there is a need for PKI in this space. E-authentication and signing has been the larger use case in all this segment. But there are, there are new trends coming up, like most of the countries are now moving to ECC algorithm because it is of more secure but a shorter key length and can respond quickly. So most of the e-authentication or signing use cases are moving to ECC. Even in IoT, it is playing a crucial role. Then there is a move towards cloud and mobile PK. As I said, few countries have already enabled remote signing, which is based on the cloud key pairs. But also mobile PKI is something what several countries are working on. Chinese Taipei has made a lot of works on this. Korea has moved forward on mobile PKI. And now recently, I think Apple also getting FIPS 140-2 level 2 certification. People are trying to adopt Apple iPhones as one of the trusted key storage medium so that mobile PKI can be in place. So this is happening. Short-term certificates is one of the important thing happening here, which is helping in growing volumes of user. Then IoT is emerging as a new application use case for PKI. However, regulations are at very nascent stage for IoT, and use of public PKI is slowly emerging because IoT implementations are predominantly going with private PKIs. But yes, recently there has been a lot of move to adopt public trusted PKI provider. So in summary, if you see, most of the countries are driven through electronic transaction law in some or the other form. Some of the countries have well-established ecosystem: India, Malaysia, Chinese Taipei, Korea. So these countries, but some of the countries have passed the law but yet to implement. So if you see in advanced stages, many of our members are in advanced stages. Like say even Iran has a lot of implementations in PKI. Then Thailand is doing good on e-invoicing side as well, other than import-export. Then policy requirements of every country vary a bit, but largely on RFC 3647. Physical controls, all these criteria are mostly identical, and at Asia PKI Consortium, we try to bring them to a common standard so that they are interoperable. Assessments need from country to country, as there is no common standard. Then interoperability and mutual recognition is still at nascent stage between these countries. So we try to work in bringing this interoperability and mutual recognition. So our consortium continues to work towards filling these gaps. So with this overall presentation, I would like to sum up saying that we would be very keen to work with AICTO as well and try to see how we can establish a trust network with Arab African region as well. So we would be very keen to progress on that. So with that, I thank you for the opportunity. And if there are any questions, please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you, Vijay, for this very rich presentation. You presented us the trends of PKI services in the region. You presented us the status and the future of status of trust services in Asia, also the region. And also you presented us first the organizational structure of Asia PKI Forum. And I noticed that maybe you have the same or slightly the same organization. You have 3 subgroups or working groups. We also have three working groups. We have working group on legal and policy, as you. We have also working group on standardization, like you. And we have another one which is different of you. So we have one on business, I think, applications, but for us is on the organization of the network, as we are a new, let's say, forum. So we are working on organizational structure of the forum. So our next panelist is with us now.
Excuse me, if I may, just one word after the presentation of Vijay, just to say him thank you for accepting our invitation. And I just remember Mr. Shrivanti, who is the chairperson of the Asia PKI Consortium. Yeah, he said in the Asia PKI Symposium last year, he was joking, but he said that maybe we should create a global PKI consortium. I think it's true now, as with the acceleration of the digital transformation, I think that international cooperation should be accelerated too. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Nada. Thank you for that.
So thank you, Nada. Thank you, Vijay. Again, thank you for this presentation. And now we'll give the floor to Mr. Konstantinos Kapsuropoulos. He was able now to join us. Mr. Konstantinos, you have the floor. So he joined us on mobile phone. So Mr. Konstantinos?
He's muted.
Muted. Nada, as you are the animator, can you invite him to unmute his connection to access?
Maybe you can unmute him as you are the organizer.
Yeah. Ask to unmute.
You're still unmuted.
Mm-mm.
Still muted. It's okay now.
Yes, hello,
Yeah.
can you hear me now?
Yes. Yes, please.
Oh, you can hear me now. Okay.
Yeah.
Apologies for the inconvenience, and there was a slight connection problem today. I am Konstantinos Kapsaropoulos from the Director General Connect of the European Commission, dealing with the EIDAS regulation. And independent of the connection problems, I have the pleasure to be with you and to talk to you about, more specifically, about the international aspects of EIDAS. Perhaps if you have already my presentation, you can run it through when I'm speaking. In the first slide, of course, it is obvious, we see it's obvious that the COVID-19 pandemic has illustrated the importance of seamless digital interaction between citizens, businesses, and administrations, and especially has illustrated the importance of effective digital solutions like digital identity and trust services under EIDAS. Before going to the international aspects of EIDAS and our international activities, I would like to give you first a short overview of the state of play in the European Union. EIDAS, since 2014, when it was established as a regulatory framework, has been the first global public framework for digital identity and trust services. It is based on a federated architecture and on technological neutrality. I have the pleasure to tell you that today, EID schemes, electronic identification schemes of 14 EU member states have been notified, and notification according to EIDAS is a prerequisite to have national electronic identification means from member states recognized across Europe. Nowadays, 58% of the European population is covered by EIDs notified and recognized under EIDAS, and 10 member states have their EID schemes operational cross-border, so their citizens can reach e-government services across the EU. Of course, in addition to the digital component, EIDAS, as you very well know, has a vast array of trust services, electronic signatures, electronic seals, timestamps, electronic delivery services, and website authentication. Today, there are 191 active qualified trust service providers in the European internal market, in comparison to only 150 in 2016. So there is a growing internal market in the EU of trust services. EIDAS and the European Union is trying through EIDAS model to contribute to setting global standards in EIDs and trust services. At a multilateral level, we are very active at the United Nations Commission on International Trade Law, at the Working Group 4 on e-commerce. We also participate in the WTO negotiations on e-commerce, where there is a chapter on electronic identities and trust services, and we have contributed through the EIDAS model, key principles, to the guidance on digital identity prepared by the Financial Action Task Force, which is the intergovernmental international organization against money laundering and financing of terrorism. At bilateral level, the EIDAS regulation, in its Article 14, stipulates that there is the possibility of mutual recognition of third countries' qualified trust services via international agreements. Electronic ID schemes can also be recognized. Up to now, there is no such international agreement. In addition to that, we encourage interoperability through standards, because interoperability through standards is a prerequisite towards mutual recognition. That's why we have supported the ETSI study on PKI-based trust services around the world. Let me give you a bit more of detail of our work at the multilateral context at UN CITRAL. At the United Nations Commission of International Trade Law Working Group 4, the objective is to create a global standard for the recognition of EID and trust services in B2B for trade. I'm happy to tell you that there are already draft provisions on the cross-border recognition of identity management and trust services, which keep the holistic approach embracing digital IDs and trust services, as well as key principles and elements of the EIDAS federating model. Despite the postponement of the last session in New York in April, we have managed to achieve progress. And the EU has coordinated comments from Austria, Belgium, Italy, Germany, France, the Czech Republic, and Poland to the UN Central Questionnaire on the way forward. We hope that in 2021, we will have a model law, which will be a very important legal instrument allowing the recognition of EID and trust services at global level. And we need everybody's support. We need African and Arab country support to have this model law in 2021. A few words now about our bilateral relations. We are very much working closely with the US, and the state legislation of Virginia is close to EIDAS. We cooperate with Canada, and the Pan-Canadian Trust Framework, which is the Digital Identity and Trust Services Framework of Canada, has a lot of analogies and similarities to EIDAS. With Japan, we have a long-standing cooperation, and we have a common use of EIDAS standards for the electronic signatures. At the moment, the European Union is currently negotiating a free trade agreement with Australia, and we are trying to have in this free trade agreement a lot of the definitions, especially on trust services. It is important to have all the trust services and the definitions of trust services which are already in EIDAS. And of course, I would like to tell you that we have an increasing interest from third countries, African countries, Ukraine, Georgia, the United Arab Emirates, Serbia, Argentina, Mexico, and so forth. There is really an increasing appetite for mutual recognition of third countries' qualified trust services with the EU EIDAS framework. Now what we are doing specifically to help developing countries abide and comply with the EU EIDAS model before allowing to have any negotiations for mutual recognition. Already, the Digital for Development Strategy in 2017, the EU Digital for Development Strategy, has been established to mainstream digital technologies into EU development policy. EIDs and trust services are recognized as key enablers for sustainable growth. At the same time, we have contributed to the principles and identification for sustainable development of the World Bank. And we are very much working in capacity building and support through our development aid programs. Africa is a key priority for the EU, and we have recently, this summer, cooperated on a blueprint on digital identity and trust services, which was originated by the Smart Africa initiative. At the same time, as we're talking about capacity building and support, we offer open source digital solutions which are free of charge and can be used by any third country to build their trust services ecosystem. In this slide, there are some of these building blocks, as we call them, these open source digital solutions, and the most relevant for the trust services are the EID component building block, the e-delivery building block, the e-signature, which are available, as I said, to every third country free of charge. Now, in addition to our capacity building, we have come up with a very important international preparedness project. We were very much reflecting on how we can help to respond to third countries' interest in mutual recognition with third countries. That's why, in the context of the Connecting Europe facility, we have elaborated a generic model to ensure compatibility with EU trusted lists under EIDAS. And this, once again, this generic model is eligible for any third country. What this international preparedness project entails? It entails mostly a toolbox or cookbook with legal and technical requirements for third countries' alignment with EU trusted lists. This is very important because trusted lists provide information on available trust services of a given country. And having compatibility with the EU trusted lists helps for mapping and comparing the situation in both EU and a third country as regards trust services. If this CEF international preparedness project is coupled with a legal assessment, then we have a starting point towards mutual recognition with a third country. But these things go together. Technical preparedness project and the legal assessment of the legal frameworks of the EU and a third country. This is important to note. And finally, I would like to quote our president, the president of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, which gives the flavor of our current work on the future of digital identity. At this moment, we are in the context of revising EIDAS, and we're working very much in full speed, I would say, on the future of digital identity. I will quote our president. Every time an app or website asks us to create a new digital identity or to easily log on via a big platform, we have no idea what happens to our data in reality. That is why the Commission will soon propose a secure European e-identity, one that we trust and that any citizen can use anywhere in Europe to do anything from paying your taxes to renting a bicycle. A technology where we can control ourselves what data and how data is used. For further information and feedback about EIDAS, you can see in this slide some important links. And also, very importantly, you have below the link to the Connecting Europe Facility catalog of building blocks, which are the digital solutions which I mentioned before that are offered to third countries to help them build their trust services ecosystem. Thank you very much for your attention, and apologies once again for the inconvenience due to the slight connection problem.
Thank you, Mr. Konstantinos. Thank you for making time within your very busy schedule. So I think EIDAS framework will for sure serve as a model for mutual recognition between the countries of the two regions, and also between them and with the European Union countries. We look forward to collaborate together in the future, and I invite participants if they have any question for Mr. Konstantinos, because he should leave early.
Actually, my meeting that was scheduled for now has been moved,
so
okay. I am ready for you and available for any question.
Okay, okay, great. Okay.
That will compensate. Okay. That will compensate to the connection problems that we have.
Okay, no problem. Thank you very much. Thank you. So there is no question for now. So I will move to Olivier. Are you ready for your presentation?
Yes, indeed.
Okay, please.
Let me try to share it. Share my presentation. Do you see my presentation?
Yes, but yeah.
So the presentation is to give some kind of hints and suggestion towards to build an Arab-African framework for electronic trust services. And a few words on SEALD. SEALD is a proud new member, a new private sector member of AICTO. So we are a small consulting firm of two senior experts. We were at the very beginning setting up a trust service provider, a qualified trust service providers in Belgium, in order to provide qualified certificates which are still used today in the national EID card. But we also, since we moved to SEALD, we serve international and government organizations in Europe, but also beyond Europe, in different parts of the world, in order to set up PKI and complete model of approval schemes and related to electronic trust services. We're also active in standardization in ETSI. I'm currently the editor of the trusted list standards, and my colleague is editor of the 411 series. We are also supporting the European Commission regarding the previously the signature directive and now the ADAS regulation implementation, and we contribute to EDISA studies on these topics. In order to jump and to make a link with the AICTO presentation and the vision for laws harmonization and interoperability of trust of digital trust services, with finding ways for unifying and harmonizing these laws, or the position of the use and on the field of the standardization. And also we already heard Trust representative Ms. Sirin clearly having some doubt on the harmonization of the ETSI standards and the web trust, and sometimes there may be some conflicting requirements, and there are some difficulties to implement them. But these are challenges amongst others towards the interoperability and mutual recognition of trust services within a country, within close countries, but within regions like Arab and African regions, or within Europe, just for an example, but even beyond, by connecting Asia PKI forum or countries which are using this with other different regions of the world is quite interesting and important challenge. We are talking indeed, as Kostas Konstantinopoulos has heard or as mentioned, with different types of trust services, which can range from electronic signatures, electronic seals for companies, or a kind of data authentication and assurance of the origin of data from a company, timestamps, electronic delivery services, website authentication, preservation and validation. And sometimes it is meaning different things or slightly different things from one region to another. But these are meant to be key building blocks and commodity, hopefully, to support electronic transactions and the boosting of the digital economy. And there are surely benefits of harmonizing laws, supervision practices, but also technical practices and trust representation on these fields of digital trust services for enabling cross-border electronic transactions and worldwide digital economies benefiting from these services. In the context of looking for harmonization and further interoperability and mutual recognition of those services, I would suggest the 4-pillar methodologies, which has been revealed useful for comparing mostly PKI-based trust services frameworks, as it was already developed in the ETSI technical report on these globalization of trust services. So the aspect is aiming to having a view of establishing a benchmark, but also in a view of establishing a national regional framework with the aim of achieving recognition. Now, these 4 pillars are the legal context, the supervision and auditing, the best practices, and the trust representation. And it offers a mapping methodology for comparing the equivalence between different systems, but also aiming to reach not only on the legal level equivalent trust services requirements, but also on the supervision, on the auditing, on the licensing, or the approval of the trust service providers and the trust services they provide, to adopt similar or equivalent audit and supervision with equivalent oversized rules in order to make sure that the one we approved are meeting the requirements which they are expected to meet. And it is closely linked to the technical aspects and the best practices, where establishing a common basis for technical requirements depending on the specific type of technology are quite important to support the interoperability. And last but not least, the trust representation, so finding a common way of indicating and publishing that this TSP is trustworthy because it is approved according to these rules in my region, but also, you know, in a way that we can map and say that, okay, this trust service and trust service providers approved in your region, it is actually comparable and equivalent to mine. So I can establish a link, a mapping link for the equivalent of these trust services, and I can establish a mutual recognition. In the context of the representation, you can also visualize this as a pyramid of trust, where you build the recognition and the trustworthiness of the trust services on top of the or on the basis of the legal provision, which are the core type of requirements that can be leveraged by best practices, the supervision auditing models, and on the top of the pyramid we have a trust logo, like the one which is used in the EU, which is a trust mark to declare that and to market that a trust service provider is a qualified one, that you can verify on a trusted list which has a constitutive value. So that is the official list from where we can verify that the trust service provider is of a certain level of in this case of a qualified level. And it is not yet a marketing logo or yet another brand. It is something which is really as a trustworthy fundamentals and framework or support, because it is based on an extensive supervision from the initiation to the termination of the trust service, and it is backed up by legal provisions and best practices. It is, by the way, not only Europe which has used this kind of model, but also the UAE. In the presentation that the TRA, which is a supervisory body of the UAE, made in May 2019, they're also building the whole system for trust services and licensed trust services, or so-called qualified trust services in the UAE on the same basis. If we go deeper into the 4 pillars and what it does mean harmonizing the legal context and the legal equivalence of the requirements, as said by the European Commission representative, Kostas, there are some facilitators and benchmarks. So the UNCITRAL future model law for the use and cross-border recognition of identity management and trust services, and also the AIDAS regulation, which is has been quite extensively actually used as a benchmark or leading example for the harmonization of the trust services and the definition of the legal requirements. But you have to take into account the general principles, so the non-discrimination against the use of electronic means, the technological neutrality, which does not mean and does not prevent for being prescriptive with regard to a certain technology. So you have to build your laws in the sense that it still takes into account the innovation and the new and promising technologies, so that you do not place barriers to this kind of innovation, but still, for once you have one type of technology that is used, you may be very quite prescriptive in terms of technical requirements in order to ensure quality, security, but also interoperability. And it is maybe one of the lessons learned for the AIDAS regulation. It has been stopped in the context of the mapping or bridging between the legal part and the technological part. There are some implementing acts which are missing. It is a recurrent comment from the market to give further guidance on how to implement and to meet the requirements from the legal part when I'm using a specific type of technology. So this does not prevent having some implementing act or secondary legislation which are providing quite strict or prescriptive requirements in terms on how to use this technology to meet the requirements. Makes it easier for the implementers, makes it easier for the market, but also makes it easier for supervising the TSPs meeting the requirements. Of course, you have to implement also functional equivalence between the services in terms of the definition of the trust services. Well, there are different types of services: the provision of certificates, the creation, the preservation, the validation of electronic signatures or electronic seals, the timestamps, delivery services, the electronic archiving of the preservation. It is quite important to have common definitions and to have specific terms which are used to define these services. Defining levels of reliability is quite important. As you know, we have in the EU qualified level, which is the one that requires a pre-authorization. Before being able to provide a service, you have to pass an audit, you have to pass an evaluation and approval by the supervisory body of the member state you are established in. And then it comes with additional advantage in terms of legal certainty and legal effects, which are available all over the regions or the area that has adopted the regulations. It comes also with a huge bunch of obligation for TSPs and for the type of trust services they provide, namely the liability and burden of proof, accessibility for persons with disabilities, rules for the supervision, for the audit, for the type of security risk and data breach notification, the management of personal data on the staff of the operations, the financial resource of data recording, and so on. So there are quite a lot of obligation that can be set up on the legal side, still being functional requirements, but with the objective of achieving a certain level of reliability for the trust services you define, depending on the levels of reliability: qualified, not qualified, approved, not approved, regulated, not regulated, or this kind of thing. You may come with user obligation, and in order to boost the adoption of the trust services and the use of the trust services as a commodity to boost the digital economy, you may also place some obligation on public online services or even on private platform to recognize at least the one which has been defined with a higher level of reliability. And surely you may include aspects for mutual recognition and define procedures to some extent in order to recognize foreign trust service providers and the trust services they provide, in order to provide or establish mutual recognition. In the context or in the pillar of supervision and auditing, there are some benchmarks and facilitators, namely the old framework which has been developed and which is commonly used in many different types of areas or industries, which is the International Accreditation Framework, or the ILAC framework, that place rules on the authorities approving the auditing bodies, so the auditors, places rules on the scheme to approve these auditing bodies and requirements of the auditing bodies, but also the way they are conducting the audits and against which kind of criteria they may accredit, they may certify TSPs or trust services, which criteria can be regulations, so purely legal requirements like in Europe, or technical standards, or a mix of both. It can also place some requirements on the way the conformity assessment reports, so the way the auditors, having evaluated the conformity of trust service providers and trust services against a specific requirement, are reporting these evaluations, so that a supervisory body or a national approving body may take a decision whether or not indeed the trust service providers and the trust services are meeting the legal requirements, and then they can be granted a specific approval status, a qualified status, or not. And this can be linked to the trust representation. They can be placed in a specific list or like a trusted list. And I will to stress a little bit a specific scheme for this, which has been adopted all over Europe, which is the framework of the certification of product, services, or processes. So the framework ISO 17065, which is defined in the context of the international accreditation framework as one of the framework for which the each national accreditation body from each and every country in the world, either directly or through a regional accreditation cooperation forum, can adopt this framework in order to accredit conformity assessment bodies, auditors, to evaluate product, services, and processes. The point is that 17065 is for any kind of product, services, or processes. So there is a standard that has been developed by ETSI, which is EN 319403, which is currently the new version will be part 1, but it is the same standard, which is profiling, or actually complementing and complementing the ISO 17065 to profile it to the very specific type of service, which are the electronic trust services provided by trust service providers. And the level 5 in this framework is actually the normative document, or the list of criteria against which the conformity of the TSP and the trust services will be evaluated is defined. In the EU, the normative document is the regulation itself, which requires yet another step to define a conformity assessment scheme and a mapping between the very specific evaluation requirements and auditing criteria to meet, to assess and evaluate the conformity of trust service providers and trust services against a regulation. But it is quite important to promote these schemes at the regional and global level, because it is built on a common existing framework, which is actually available. There is a national accreditation body in each and every country. It is true that the framework for evaluating and assessing product and services, which is 17065, is not necessarily available in every country through the national accreditation body. But the principle of peer reviews of these national accreditation bodies and the principle of certified ones accepted everywhere is available from not, even if a TSP is established in a country, the national accreditation body from this country has not signed the MLA with the International Accreditation Forum for 17065 and is not able to audit conformity assessment bodies from the country for assessing trust service providers against this scheme. The TSP can select one conformity assessment body from another country that has been accredited in another country according to this scheme. And today actually there are 30, so 30, accredited CAPs in the context of ADAS, which have those 4 levels ready. And the level 5 is actually ADAS as a regulation requirement, but they may also have a scope of the accreditation that is ready to assess TSPs and trust services they provide against specific standards. And it is not that difficult to add another legislation as a normative document, especially if it is aligned with the ADAS regulation or aligned with the UNCITRAL model for this kind of thing. The last milestone in this context of mutual recognition, when this model is adopted, not only it provides a strong common basis for making sure that the audit of the TSPs and the TS has been conducted in the correct way by auditors which are not only accredited but also supervised by national accreditation body, but in a common framework. The only last milestone is to make sure that the conformity assessment scheme, so the list of criteria and then controls and evaluation controls that the conformity assessment body is using, is suitable for meeting the assessment of a national legislation or a national scheme for the approval of trust services providers. But this is certainly and definitely one scheme that should be considered for harmonizing the supervision and the auditing of TSPs all over the world, and including in the African and Arab region. In terms of best practices, of course, the easy suggestion or recommendation would have been using the common technical basis, or using the same standard makes easier the mutual recognition. And it's not only in terms of best practices, but also making sure that you have sufficient interoperability between the TSPs. And it comes with the structuring of the requirement, but also the mapping of the technical requirement versus the legal requirements. There are plenty of different standardization organizations. I can spot one from the SENS, ENELEC, and ETSI, where there is a complete, very recently, I think a few months ago, the last standard has been published for completing the whole set of standards and technical specification to support different types of trust services, not only the one which are defined in the ADAS regulation, but also other type of trust services which are not yet currently regulated, like the preservation or the archiving of documents or data. They are defined in these standards, which are extensively used actually by the TSPs in Europe and beyond, and especially also by the conformity assessment bodies to make the assessment of the conformity with the ADAS regulation. The last pillar is about the trust representation that can be implemented through different models for representing the trust or the approval status of a TSP and a trust service they provide according to a specific scheme or set of requirements from a country or region. You have the trusted list, the trust anchor stores, like in the browsers, or the bridge and the cross certification model. This actually, they can all be implemented and they can be technically mapped together without technical difficulties. The only important aspect is that a trust store is not comparable with a trusted list. A trusted list is much more than a trust store because it gives a lot of information in addition to this. And the important aspect is to choose a model that fits the best in order to maintain and to display in a structured way the status, but at a certain point of time, but also the full historical information about the status. And that's why the trusted list is quite interesting as an harmonized format to provide the approval status of trust service providers and the trust services they provide with a full history. So I will not go into the detail. It's an XML based format which can provide information on the scheme, on the scheme operator. Also enables a trusted list to point to other trusted lists, just like in order to facilitate the recovery, but also the authentication and the validation of the EU member state trusted list. The European Commission has created a list of the list, which is a central list of pointers actually to the different national trusted lists. But either the trusted list or the list of the list can include also a pointer to another trusted list and provide some kind of mapping with the different way you are approving or displaying the approval status of a trusted list. There are different tools, as Kostas highlighted, that are made available by the Commission for the EU member state. A tool to manage, to edit, to update, to sign the trusted list. Tools for browsing the trusted list, because these are XML files which are not easy to read by humans. So there is a browser that allows to browse the different trusted lists from the different member states. Tools for notifying, for member state to notify the Commission for adding or making some changes in the pointers to the different national trusted lists. But also building blocks that are enabling service providers or application to create and validate electronic signatures or qualified electronic signatures, and for trust service providers, but also for the consumer, you can link the trust mark that the trust service provider or qualified trust service provider is placing on its website with the browsing facility using the VAT or the National Trade Register identifier for the TSPs. But also, as Kostas mentioned, all these tools are available for non-EU countries. And this is the aim of the CEF International Preparedness Project that has been presented by Kostas, which comes with cookbook, with legal technical requirements, with a self-assessment checklist. So Kostas mentioned that this project and a formal legal assessment by the European Commission is a starting point towards a potential future mutual recognition. But the CEF International Preparedness Project comes with a tool that enables each and every country to make its own self-assessment first, so that you can prepare to the legal assessment by the Commission. And there are also a toolbox for technical pilots. And the principle, as I said, is that there are specifications for upgrading the list of the list with a pointer to a third country trusted list and indicating mapping information to be quite clear on which type of trust services and the TSP from a third country is equivalent to qualified trust service providers and qualified trust services in Europe, following, of course, the signing of a mutual recognition and following the legal assessment and following the preparation of this mutual recognition. So all the tools are shortly available for facilitating this mutual recognition and this assessment. So shortly to conclude and summarize the recommendation for paving the way and using facilitators or benchmark for paving the way towards an Arab African framework for electronic trust services, setting up common or harmonized rules on the law level, on the level of the laws, not on the law level, but on the level of the laws. So the ancestral model law that is coming to 2021 is certainly an interesting benchmark. The ADAS regulation as well, benefiting from lessons learned, of course, stressing the importance of the secondary legislation for a more balance between the technical aspects and the legal aspects. On the supervision auditing, I would certainly strongly recommend the promotion of the ISO 17065 supplemented by the 19403, which is the certification framework for TSPs and TS to be evaluated for evaluating the conformity of these services and providers against specific normative requirements, be it legal requirements, be it technical requirements, or being a mix of legal and technical requirements, so that it is a strong and sound common basis for recognizing the evaluation all over the world. And for the best practices, the closer we are using, or the more we are using similar and common standards, the better it will be, and the easier it will be for the mutual recognition. And consider, of course, the latest version of the Sense and Electricity standard, which has been built for that. So it's not meant to be used only by the EU, even if it is even if these are European standardization organizations, they are making global standards. And with regard to trust representation, the trusted list is surely, or it is a requirement if you want to achieve a mutual recognition with Europe. But there are many other countries which have implemented the trusted list, like Brazil, Peru, UAE, Republic of Serbia, Ukraine, and so on. And in order to facilitate these mutual recognition, and also to learn a lot about the mutual recognition and the use of the trusted list, the CEF International Preparedness Project will be certainly an interesting tool. So that was a long presentation, but if you have questions, that we can surely take them on board.
Thank you, Mr. Olivier, for this interesting presentation. Actually, lots of insightful information. I think within the scope of ICANNET, we need this kind of benchmark for the potential common Arab-African framework for digital trust. It will be helpful for us in order to set the right milestones, maybe for the future. I would like to invite the participants. If you have any question or comment, please don't hesitate to ask your question or if you have any comment. If no, maybe Olivier will move. I don't know. I would like to ask Ms. Tirintlili if Etrust has something to say. Mr. Anis Sejman, are you here?
Yes, Nada. Hi.
Yeah, hi. Anis told me that maybe he has something to present, or no?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So Olivier, maybe you don't have a lot of time to get dressed because we will move to the last item in our agenda for the relaunch of the survey. I would like to say that within the scope of this project, we launched 3 years ago the survey about about the state of the art and prospects of Etrust services in the 2 regions. The focus was on technical and legal levels. This survey, the aim was to collect data about e-certification and PKI authorities, and also to give us a clear vision about the state of the art and the future needs of these countries in the field of digital trust. Unfortunately, we just have got feedback from 5 countries at that time, and even this country now I think they have done some development, or they have a new achievement. In this, for this purpose, we just think to update, to add a new item in this survey and to relaunch it. I will give the floor to Mr. Olivier to present the new, the updates or the new survey. You are ready, or? Olivier.
Yes, I was muted,
okay.
and I was not able to find to unmute. It's okay. You see the screen, or?
Yeah.
Okay, so indeed the idea is to relaunch the survey in order to enrich the Arab African countries state of play report on digital services. So indeed to take into consideration that the 5 or 6 countries that already replied has moved further into the implementation and to the adoption of the trust services, but also in order to continue the collection of information and to have a snapshot of the situation in each and every Arab and African country. So we are aiming to cover all 66 countries to have snapshot and a better understanding on the framework for electronic trust services in each and every country. So working on the basis of a profile, the methodology is based on the 4 pillars approach. So the survey will have questions on the different aspects, of course, some contact details and then the name of the country. So questions on the legal and regulatory aspects, on the supervision and auditing, on the best practices and technical aspects, and whether or not they are using a specific type of trust representation, like trusted list or trust or a specific list or whatever. A few questions on the mutual recognition, the aims and the objective and expectations from the different countries. A few questions on the statistics and information related to the AICTO initiatives. The aim is indeed to build a report on a collection of 66 country profiles, to analyze all these profiles and derive some trends and gaps potentially, and to make recommendations towards harmonization and with a view to enabling and facilitating the mutual recognition. So this is meant, or it is expected to be a key tool for supporting the journey towards paving the way towards the common Arab-African framework for digital trust services, at least by knowing where each and every country is and where they want actually to go. So indeed, the Nada, you may provide some details, but the idea was to have this survey questionnaire being released end of next month, so end of October, and to collect all this information. I don't know which kind of time frame we can use to build this kind of thing, but at least a few months and half a year for getting this kind. So they can be also linked to some desktop research. So as SEALD, we are committed to be active as a private sector member of the AICNet, to contribute and to organize and be using the editor of this report, so that we can enrich and then finalize it with a view for all 66 countries.
Okay.
So if you want to add something.
It's okay. Just I would like to thank you, Olivier, for this work and for your support. Just this survey will be soon available on our website, etrustnet.org. We'll share with you the, just I would like to share the screen to show the website. And also maybe we'll send it electronic to our focal points. And if they would like to directly answer this survey online, it will be better to Konstantinos.
Yes, Konstantinos, thank you. So I'd like to thank you all for your presentation, for sharing this information with us, and we hope that it will give us more more conviction and more direction to go through establishing our PKI forum for the African and Arab countries. So I'm looking forward to work more closely with you in order to be able to finalize our objective in harmonizing the standards and the regulation between our countries. So thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you very much indeed.
DJ, do you have something to add?
No, I think very interesting webinar, lot of diverse topics and quite interesting subjects were spoken. The other presenter, Mr. Constantinos, right? If I'm not wrong.
Yes.
I think
Yes.
yeah, that's also very interesting. And what Olivier covered is also very welcoming. How the countries can look at adopting this trust services, right? So very interesting. So these kind of webinars should be happening quite a lot. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for inviting me. My pleasure to join this webinar. Yeah.
Thank you, Vijay. Thank you all. Thank you, Ms. Siri, for your time. Thank you, Olivier. Thank you, Mr. Konstantinos, all our speakers and our all participants in this webinar. Just, I would like to say that we trust in common work, and this network is for you to. It's a framework. It's a platform for you to work together to come up with common frameworks in this field. And we just need your support, because with this support we'll go further in the achievement of our goals. Thank you so much. If there is no question, just the webinar is over. Thank you so much. Thank you. See you very soon. See you very soon. Thank you very much.
See you very
Thank you.
soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.